All right. Peace and power and elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany coming through here live and fade. Live and fade, live and fade. Thank you for those of you that have subscribed to my channel. Make sure you also check out my contents on here, share my channel, hit the notification bell when I come on, and all that great stuff. All right. So honestly, I had forgot that I was going to be doing this video, but I said I'm gonna go ahead and get this video out the way. Um, so I want to take you guys to the African coast, right? But I want to take you guys to an island that's like right off the east coast of Africa, which is still part of Africa, okay? And that island would be Comoros. So the island of Comoros, which is an island that's located east coast off of Africa, okay? So I want to go ahead and talk about a queen there. Her name is Djoumbé Fatima. It's pronounced as Djoumbé Fatima. So the D is silent, okay? The D is silent, right? So Djoumbé Fatima, all right? Now, the interesting part about Djoumbé Fatima is not only that she is a queen, but also she was a Muslim as well. You know, by Friday being the celebration of Jummah for Muslims, every Friday they have Jummah. I figured, well, today I want to be able to give a dedication to a Muslim sister, okay? Because again, this is Women History Month, and it's only fair. Now, when Ramadan come up, which is gonna be coming up pretty soon, somewhere around April, I believe. Yeah, when Ramadan come up, I am going to put more focus and more emphasis on Islam because there's a lot of subject that I haven't covered regarding to Islam, and there's a lot of people that I haven't spoke about regarding to the Islamic culture. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to try to do more video about the Islamic history and Islamic community, etc., and um, especially the impact it has on the African American community and whatnot. So it's only fair, okay? That I make sure I leave that special month of Ramadan for the dedication of the Muslims. All right. All right, then. So let me go ahead and get started. Peace. How you doing? Peace, peace, peace. How you doing today? How you doing on this lovely evening? So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on this topic. Okay. So Djoumbé Fatima. That's Djoumbé Fatima. That's a picture of her. She was a little woman, as you can see. Okay. All right. So, and that photo was taken in Paris in 1868. All right. So she died at the age of 41. She was very young. Okay. Djoumbé Fatima, also known as Djoumbé Saudi or Queen Djoumbé Saudi, was the queen of Mwali in Comoros from 1842 to 1865 and 1874 to her death in 1878. All right, so it talks about her early life. Djoumbé Soli inherited the throne of the island of Moholi or Mwali after the death of her father, King Rama, Raman, King Ramana Teka. All right, so her father's name was King Ramana Teka, also known as Sultan Abdul Rahman. Okay, Ramateka was a Malagasy prince who ran away from Madagascar after the death of King Radama I. She was also a cousin of King Radama II. She had a sister, Djoumbé Salama, who died young. Okay, her mother was Marina of Madagascar. Her father, General Ramataka, was brother-in-law to Radama I, king of Madagascar. He died in 1842 and Djoumbé ascended the throne. Her mother, Raval, ruled as regent ruled as regent for a time and married her husband's former advisor. S- I think it's pronounced as Savandini in 1843. He became Djoumbé's tutor and started making arrangements for her marriage to the Sultan of Zanzibar. So when the missionary David Griffiths returned to Mwali in 1841, expecting to meet her father, he in fact found his young daughter Djoumbé Soli on the throne. So Djoumbé Soli, like the majority of people on the island, was Muslim and did not convert to Christianity. Okay. So it says Queen Djoumbé Soli receiving a French delegation in 1863. All right, that's her once again sitting right there, sitting down covered. That's her. Okay. All right. So Raval and Sinvandini divorced in 1846. Mayotte had recently been ceded to France. The French, eager to develop their presence on Mohali, arranged for Madame Drouot to serve as governess for Djoumbé. The French also arranged for her coronation at the age of 12 in 1849. 2 years later, she expelled the governess and married Said Mohammed Nazir Qadar, who was cousin to Zanzibar's Sultan. Qadar became prince consort and ruled with Fatima until 1860. When he was ousted by the French, Fatima held on to the throne, marrying two sultans. She renounced the throne for her son. Mm, that's interesting. Okay, it says in 1863, the French government sent a delegation to meet with Queen Djoumbé Soli, and the event was recorded by a visiting photographer, Desiree Charnay. He recorded that she seemed melancholy and sickly and had a number of attendants. She was dressed extremely fine in a robe of rich Turkish tissue of silk and gold. Her dress covered most of her face, with only her head visible. Only her hands visible. The purpose of the visit had been to impress upon the young queen the advantages of becoming a French colony. She resisted. Djoumbé Soli lived in the palace overlooking the sea, next to which was the garrison, a white building of 2 rooms which held 28 soldiers. All right. So it goes on to say when the French returned in 1871, she was restored to the throne and ruled until her death in 1878. All right, so let's give a recap. So she inherited power from her father. Okay. Her father was already in a position of power. And by her being let's see, I think she was the only child. Yeah. So by her being the only child, she took over her father's regiment, right? Or power. She took over she reigned the power. So once she had took over, okay, there were some things that was going on, taking place. On the French came over to the island, wanted to take over, wanted to be in control, and she was not very willing to give it up like any other person that's in that position. They don't want to give up their land, their country over to no foreigners and whatnot. All right. Um, so that's just some unique information. And then it speaks about her kids, right? It says, from her marriage to Saeed Mohammed bin Nazir and Qadar, Prince Consort and Regine of Mahali, counsel to Saeed bin Sultan of Oman and Zanzibar, 3 sons. So she got 3 sons, says Mohammed bin Saeed, was it Mohammed bin Saeed Hamadi Makadara, Sultan of Mahali, Abdurrahman bin Saidi Ahmadi Makadara, all right. Uh, Mahmud Mahmudu bin Muhammad Makadara, okay. So, and it says, yeah, those names are very tongue twisting because it's Arabic. So yeah, Arabic is a very tough language. I know a little bit of Arabic, but I don't know enough. I know Arabic because of my practice of Islam. So yeah, it's very tongue twisting. So you have to go, you have to use a lot. So that's why it sounds like that, because you have to into it. So, anyways, it says, from her relationship to Emil Forat de Legon, 2 children, Bakoko, Prince of Mohali, Salima Machamba, okay? So these are her children, all right? This is her dynasty, her legacy, her descendants, all right? And forgive me if I sound kind of tired, because I am. I was just over here napping, so I sound very tired. So eventually I'll snap out of it and just get myself in the mood. But yes, I do sound very tired right now. All right. So I have a book for you guys that if you want to check out for yourself, you're more than welcome to do so. So I think that it is a very great book that you guys should check out. It's called African Women, Early History to the 21st Century. All right. By Kathleen Sheldon. African Women, Early History to the 21st Century. Okay. So basically, this book goes into the history about African women from the early time period all the way up to now, or to the current state. Let me see when this book was written. Okay, so this book just came out in 2017, so it ain't been too long ago. So this book is kind of fresh, but yeah, it's just go into the origin and history about African women from the 21st century to, from the beginning to from the early history all the way up to now. Okay, so it's a lot that goes into that. I want to show you guys a book real fast. Hold on. Also, if you guys don't have this book, you need to check this book out. This is a very heavy, big book, but it's worth the money. It's called The Praises of Black Women by Ancient African Queens, Simone Schwartz-Bart. Okay, so you guys need to get this book if you want to learn more about African queens and women rulers, warriors, and whatnot during the African time period. Please check this book out. She even got I think 3 or 4 other volumes of this book right here. But I strongly recommend you guys check this book out when you get a chance to put this on your bucket list. All right. Post this book up for you so y'all can see it. Okay. Put that book down. Yeah. All right, so yeah, that's another book I recommend y'all check out. So I'm gonna go through that book and uh do a topic on like a African queen warrior or just an African sister that was very prominent in the community. So I'm gonna use some of that information from that book as a reference tool. Okay. But anyways, getting back to this book right here, African Early History of the 21st Century about African women. All right. Let's see. Let's look at the contents on here. Okay, as you can see, you got the introduction, women and gender in Africa before 1700, market traders, queens, and slaves in the 17th and 18th centuries, religion and slavery in the 19th century, colonial era 1850s to 1945, working family, politics, leadership, and resistance to colonialism until 1945, liberation struggles and politics from the 1950s to the 1970s, work, family, and urbanization from the 1970s to the 1990s, women and politics after independence, women at the beginning of the 21st century, bibliography and index. Okay, all right. Whew. All right, then. So let me go ahead and let's go to the introduction. Okay, I want to read the introduction real fast, and it says African women. Excuse me. All right. It says African women, early history to the 21st century, present a history of Africa with women as the starting point. The history of African women is a vital and successful field of study growing from a small number of books and articles published in the 1960s and 70s to now thriving research that covers a huge range of places, time, and topics that has been achieved in the 21st century. In this book, coverage of important events and individuals documents one's involvement in critical episodes of African history and demonstrates how women have been central to well-known aspects of African history that are often seen solely from a male perspective. The inclusion of topics such as marriage, motherhood, women's work, and women as religious and political leaders establishes the reality that knowledge of women history is essential to making sense of African history more broadly. All right. Okay. So let's go down. Let me see. It said knowing women's history will make it possible to better understand where African women stand today. Women once had a greater power in many African societies where they were able to wield both individual and collective authority, sometimes with greater success than others. At, as this book shows, women still draw in older forms of exercising female collective power, often developing innovative approaches out of their historical experiences in order to deal with new situations. Some patterns in the division of labor, martial option, and other gender relation were more fluid in the past, and they may still be more fluid than is usually recognized. While those social structures have changed, some aspects have also persisted, such as women's focus on farming as the basis of their economic contributions, as well as their expectation that motherhood is a source of power. All right. So now let's get into the information where it talks about Djoumbé Fatima. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna scroll down. Okay. It says women leaders in colonial East Africa. right? In some cases, women ruled in situations where it was more common to see men, though they did not necessarily push for women's issues when they were in positions of authorities. Their presence helped ensure that women were not completely marginalized and shut out of powerful roles in government. And it goes on to say Djoumbé Fatima was Queen Wali Mwali in the Comoros Islands between 1842 and 1878. Born in 1837, both father and mother were members of Marina royal family that was based in Madagascar. She ascended to the throne at age 5 with her father, Rama Ramataka, died, though her mother and stepfather, who had been a close advisor to her father, ruled as regents for some years. Djoumbé Fatima ruled at a time of contesting powers, and her position on the throne reflected that turbulence as the French tried to gain influence while the Comoran rulers continued to favor the Arabs based on Zanzibar. The French provided a governess for her when her mother divorced, and they arranged for her coronation in 1849 when she was only 12. And what it says, in 1851, Djoumbé Fatima expelled the governess and married Said Mohammed Nazir Qadar, a cousin of the Sultan of Zanzibar, who ruled with her as a prince consort until the French ousted him in 1860. And then what it also said, Djoumbé Fatima remained in power, marrying 2 sultans in succession and making commercial agreements with a French trader in 1865, which she rescinded 2 years later. She renewed her ties with Zanzibar, abdicated in favor of her son, and later was restored to the throne when the French returned in 1871. Subsequently, she ruled without further interruption until her death in 1778. All right. Okay. So also, so yeah, that pretty much correlates to the subject that I was talking about. See, what I like to do is I like to go to other sources, okay, to make sure the sources are lined up with one another. So in whatever sources I can find, and if that connects with the original source, the primary source that I use, then I know that okay, it's accurate enough. All right. So that's always important. So as you can see in this case, she was the queen and she took on power, and she also stepped down to make sure that her son get in a position of power. So when she came in, right, her father didn't have any sons. All right. She was the daughter. She was the only one, so he gave the power over to her. But at that time, she was very young. She was only 5 years old. Okay, so somebody had to come in to assist her in power until she become of age. All right, so there were women that was in position of power during the time in Africa. We all thought that women didn't have that type of leadership and type of government power and stuff. They did, but it was not as many of them that was in that position of power. Okay, it was not as many, but there was women in power. Djoumbé Fatima, Nzinga, okay, just to name a few, they were in that type of power position. See, when you have that position, you have a lot more responsibility, okay? Especially when it comes to foreigners from other countries coming into your land. You got to be able to figure out how to negotiate things with them, how to keep them from gaining control over the resources and assets. You have to be able to watch them. So it's like you got to play the This is where the chess move come into play. Anytime you have a power regard to government, you got to be careful how you move your pieces. You got to be careful what you do. Because if you make any type of wrong move, then you lose your position and it becomes in the possession of those who are not native to that land, who do not have any type of, who is not from that government. They take control of it, and once they take control, that means your economics, your social, and your political value is controlled altogether. All right. So So she had to be careful how she moved. Let me read another thing that's down here, something that just caught my attention. Okay. Right here it says spirit mediums and cultural resistance in East Africa. Okay. Just want to read something really fast. It says women became spirit mediums in many society and circumstances. Such religious authority was related to political influences as well. Spirit mediums were responsible for guiding people access to ancestors and for assisting in important decisions concerning social well-being. Because of those undertakings, some women use their position to get involved with anti-colonialism movements. Accounts from 19th century Uganda and Tanzania tell of spirit possession cults that were primarily female and which counted nearly all of the women in a community as members. Often women who became healers had special authority over women's activities such as childbirth or agriculture. For some women, taking on that role offered an outlet for exercising authority to which they otherwise would have not had access. In a few cases, women holding position of ritual power were treated as men. While in a trance, women would be allowed and expected to criticize the social order that their comments could be directed at the general situation, such as the dominance of men, or they could focus on a particular man, such as a husband. They would also expect or demand gifts from members of their community. In a few notable cases, women who were spiritual leaders rose to prominence as anti-colonial activists. Let me see something. What books is this? I stepped away. Okay, the name of the book is called African Queens or African Women from Early History to 21st Century. The name of the book is called African Women from Early History to 21st Century. I'll make sure that I'll post up the name of the book before I log off. So that way you can get it. Okay. I'll make sure I post up the name of it. All right. Okie dokie. All right. So also down here says the colonial attitude towards those who exhibit spiritual leadership in African society was labeled the activities as witchcraft, a negative term for diverse spiritual customs. There existed immense variation in witchcraft, and Africans held both positive and negative views about the role witches played in society. Witches included diviners who were believed to have the ability to view the future and sorcerers capable of performing transformative and redemptive acts. The incidence of reported witchcraft sometimes increased with a community was undergoing unusual stress. Witchcraft was often noticed among family, kin, and close neighbors in patrilineal societies. Wives who married and from other communities were vulnerable to complaints that they were witches. Confidence over ordinary issues could have an outcome in witchcraft. For instance, any inexplicable illness might be blamed on an individual who was labeled a witch, or a woman who was unusually successful might bring on jealous complaints that she relied on witchcraft. Those accused of being witches were subject to rituals to identify and condemn them. Some rites, such as those that rely on poison ordeals or other physical tests, could result in further illness and death. European colonial officials regularly tried to end what they considered witchcraft, and anti-colonial leaders who held religious power and leadership were subject to arrest and trial in colonial courts as witches. That's deep information, ain't it? So, those who was into the spiritual practices, they also were anti-colonial activists too. And if they were like caught up practicing the spiritual practices, they was often looked at as witchcrafting and whatnot. So yeah, so a lot of them didn't have it very easy. So those who were considered as spirit mediums, right, they didn't have it so easy. They was often faced with criticism and labels. All right. That's that information. Again, let me post up the title of this book for those of you that just coming in here. So the book is called African Women, Early History to the 21st Century, Kathleen Sheldon. Okay. African Women, Early History to the 21st Century, Kathleen Sheldon. All right. So check this book out. All right. Make sure you guys write down, take notes and whatnot, and then look it up for yourself. Okay. All right, then. So that's that information. That's all that I have for tonight. Okay. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in, watching. Thank you for supporting my channel. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Share my channel. Also, check out my other video contents out here on other subjects, and also subject pertaining to African and African. Appreciate it. Shout out to all the new subscribers out there. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and, well, thank you. Thank you to the chat. Thanks everybody to the chat. Peace to everybody that's on the chat. I really appreciate you guys for tuning in, just watching. So I got here at a late start than usual. But again, I want to thank you all for really taking that time out to look at this video. All right. All right, then. Well, let me go ahead and just log out. And I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, a wonderful night. Some of you might be at work. Some of you might be at home chilling. I don't know what you guys are doing. Whatever your time zone may be. Other than that, peace and power elevation. And I will reconnect with you all later. All right.